The Galactic Council chamber was not built to impress newcomers. It was built to remind them of their place. Suspended above the gas giant Viril Prime, the chamber floated in a gravity-balanced orbit, its ancient hull etched with the symbols of civilizations long extinct. Beneath its transparent floor, storms the size of solar systems churned endlessly, amber clouds folding into one another like slow-burning fire. For over 10,000 cycles, this chamber had decided the fate of stars. It had authorized wars that erased species from history. It had sanctioned blockades that starved worlds into silence. It had listened as entire civilizations pleaded for mercy and voted anyway. Today, it listened to something far more unusual, a request. At the center of the chamber, a holographic projection rotated slowly. A small blue planet, a single yellow star, a system barely worth marking on most star charts. Earth. "This," said High Strategos Karzul of the Vrock's Dominion, "is the species requesting parity." Karzul's voice resonated through the chamber in layered tones, part sound, part vibration, part psychic resonance. His chitinous frame hovered within a personal gravity field, mandibles folded neatly in what humans might have mistaken for calm. The reaction was immediate. Laughter rippled outward in 100 alien forms. Some delegates released sharp bursts of chemical amusement. Others pulsed with bioluminescent humor. Several crystalline entities refracted light into mocking patterns. "Their civilization is divided into competing political units," observed a Sarathi delegate, its insectoid limbs twitching with amusement. "They allow civilians to influence military command," added an Olkesh mind, its crystalline facets glowing faintly. "They broadcast emotional media during crises," said another. The laughter intensified. Karzul waited. He understood theater. "Humans," he continued, "have been spacefaring for less than 3 centuries. Their fleets lack standardization. Their command structures are decentralized. Their strategy relies on improvisation." The hologram shifted. Human warships appeared, angular, asymmetrical, scarred by repairs that had not bothered to hide themselves. Weapon mounts varied from ship to ship. Hull plating bore visible weld lines. No symmetry, no ceremonial design, no reverence for perfection. "Crude," Karzul said. The word carried weight. In Vrock's doctrine, crude was not an insult, it was a diagnosis. It meant unfinished, inefficient, temporary. "Improvisation," Karzul went on, "is the refuge of those who have not yet mastered control." The council voted without hesitation. Earth would be blockaded, not conquered, corrected. The Vrock's armada arrived at Sol like a mathematical proof. 1,000 warships emerged from folded space in flawless synchronization. Their formation was exact, each vessel occupying a predetermined vector calculated centuries earlier and refined through 1,000 victorious campaigns. Carriers the size of continents anchored the formation. Escort vessels filled every gap. Shields overlapped in perfect harmony. From Earth, the night sky changed. Stars vanished behind silhouettes of impossible scale. Ancient constellations were eclipsed by steel and energy. The moon reflected unfamiliar light. Across the planet, people looked up. Some screamed. Some prayed, some recorded. Emergency broadcasts cut across every network. This is the United Nations Emergency Authority. All orbital traffic is suspended. We are attempting diplomatic contact. The Vrocks did not respond. They did not fire. They did not threaten.
They simply waited. "This is mercy," Karzul explained to the council as the blockade settled into place. "Fear is most instructive when paired with inevitability." Human fleets mobilized in response, and immediately the Vrak's observers were disappointed. Human ships did not assemble into a single armada. There was no ceremonial defense line, no unified challenge. Instead, vessels dispersed. Some accelerated outward toward the edges of the system. Others powered down and drifted. Several altered course unpredictably, doubling back on themselves. "Chaotic deployment," reported Substrategos Yilthrek. "No centralized command pattern detected." Karzul observed the tactical projection calmly. "They are afraid," he said. "Fear disrupts discipline." Intercepted communications streamed across the command displays. Human officers argued openly. Civilian leaders questioned military priorities. Scientists injected themselves into tactical debates. "They lack doctrinal purity," Yilthrek noted. "They lack obedience," Karzul corrected, "a fatal flaw." The blockade tightened. Cargo vessels were turned away. Fuel shipments vanished. Orbital habitats dimmed as power was rationed. On Earth, markets collapsed within hours. Panic spread faster than any virus. Still, no surrender came. No unified plea. No concession. Instead, something stranger happened. The noise stopped. Human transmissions faded abruptly. Civilian chatter vanished. Military broadcasts narrowed to brief encrypted bursts. Background telemetry, normally a constant hum, fell eerily silent. Yilthrek felt an unfamiliar sensation ripple through his neural clusters. "Strategos," he said carefully, "human activity has decreased by 74%. Karzul studied the data. "Collapse?" "No," Yilthrek replied. "Reorganization." The word lingered uncomfortably. In Vrak's doctrine, silence meant surrender or extinction. There was no category for strategic quiet. "Dispatch a probe force," Karzul ordered. "Minimal commitment." A single Vrak's cruiser detached from the formation and advanced toward the inner system. Shields raised, weapons idle. It crossed the orbit of Mars, then vanished. No explosion, no radiation, no debris, just absence. "Sensor malfunction?" Yilthrek asked. Before recalibration completed, 2 more cruisers disappeared, then 5, then 12. For the first time since the blockade began, the bridge of the Dominion spear fell silent. Karzul stared at the tactical display. Human space had become uncertain. "Expand sensor spectrum," he commanded. "All dimensions." The results were incoherent. Gravitational constants fluctuated subtly. Spatial readings contradicted themselves. Areas of empty space registered as occupied, then empty again. "This is not weapon fire," said Yilthrek slowly. "It is environmental manipulation." Karzul's mandibles tightened. "Crude," he repeated, but the word no longer sounded certain.
On the far side of the moon, Admiral Lena Ortiz stood in the dim command bay of the UNS Horizon's wake. She had not slept in 3 days. Around her, officers moved with quiet urgency. No shouting, no rigid hierarchy, just people, arguing softly, adjusting, adapting. "We can't win a straight engagement," Commander Patel said. "Everyone knows that." Ortiz nodded. "Good." She looked at the tactical projection, 1,000 enemy ships arranged with terrifying precision. "Then we won't fight straight." Human strategy had never been elegant. It had been born on a planet that punished rigidity.
Storms ignored plans. Earthquakes ignored borders. Disease ignored authority. Humanity had survived by learning faster than its environment could kill it. Phase 1 is complete, Ortiz said quietly. They think we're panicking. And Phase 2? Patel asked. Ortiz allowed herself a thin smile. We make them certain. The first thing humanity learned during the blockade was how fragile routine truly was. Cargo ships that had traveled the same routes for decades were suddenly gone. Orbital elevators froze mid-ascent. Entire cities experienced rolling blackouts as energy grids struggled to compensate for the sudden loss of off-world infrastructure. On Earth, the sky remained crowded with alien silhouettes. They did not move. They did not threaten. They simply existed, a constant reminder that extinction was no longer theoretical. In New York, people gathered in the streets at night, staring upward between towering buildings, searching for reassurance in familiar constellations that were no longer there. In Delhi, prayer halls overflowed. In Berlin, scientists slept beneath desks as simulations ran endlessly. Humanity had faced disasters before, but never one that waited. Admiral Lena Ortiz watched Earth rotate slowly beneath her ship. From orbit, the planet looked peaceful. Blue oceans, white clouds, no sign of panic, famine, or fear. It always does, she murmured. Commander Patel stood beside her. Civilian morale is holding, he reported. Barely, but holding. Ortiz nodded. Humanity was resilient, but resilience without direction became desperation. Remind Fleet Command, no heroics. Every action must create confusion, not clarity. Patel hesitated. Some captains are asking why we're not striking back. Ortiz turned to face him. Because the moment they understand what we're doing, she said calmly, we lose. Human strategy was not about overpowering the Vraks. It was about denying them certainty. On the Dominion spear, certainty was everything. Harzul reviewed projections with mounting irritation. Every simulation ended the same way, human resistance collapsing under sustained pressure. And yet, reality refused to comply. Human ships appeared where no logical path allowed them to be. Energy signatures flared briefly, then vanished. Probes sent to investigate failed to return or transmitted contradictory data. They are using civilian technology, Yilthrek reported, non-military gravitational devices, inconsistent power outputs. Harzul dismissed the concern. Civilian tools cannot threaten a war fleet. But they are interfering with prediction. Prediction was sacred. Vrak doctrine rested on the belief that any system, given enough data, could be mastered. War was mathematics. Victory was inevitability. Humans were breaking the math. Deploy additional sensor arrays, Harzul ordered. Increase data intake. The result was chaos. More data produced less clarity. Space itself seemed to lie. Far from the front lines, on the dark side of Luna, Dr. Aisha Rahman adjusted a trembling holographic display. She was not a soldier. She had never fired a weapon. Her expertise lay in experimental physics, specifically in phenomena most military planners considered impractical curiosities. "You're telling me this wasn't meant to be used like this?" a junior engineer said. Rahman nodded. It wasn't meant to be used at all. Humanity's greatest advantage had always been curiosity. Technologies were developed not for war, but for exploration, energy efficiency, disaster mitigation. Gravitational stabilizers, deep space scanners, localized space-time dampeners. None were weapons, but weapons were just tools applied with intent.
"We don't need to destroy their ships," Raman said quietly. "We need to make them wrong." The first deliberate trap was set near the orbit of Jupiter. Human vessels gathered openly, broadcasting panicked transmissions and erratic maneuvers. To the Vraks, it looked like a desperate regrouping attempt. Harzul authorized engagement without hesitation. "Crush them," he said. The Vrak advanced. Human vessels denoted devices that bent local gravitational fields just enough to distort perception. Distance lied, velocity misreported, targeting solutions degraded in real time. The Vrak fired and missed, not because the humans dodged, but because space itself refused to behave. Missiles curved, beams refracted, ships collided with invisible gradients. Human vessels vanished, not destroyed, but displaced, slipping through folded pockets of warped space. To the Vraks, it felt like fighting a battlefield that refused to stay still. "This is unacceptable," Harzul snarled. Yilthrek watched the data streams collapse into contradiction. "They are not defending territory," he said slowly. "They are defending possibility." Back on Earth, news of the engagement spread cautiously. Governments released minimal information. There were no victory announcements, no speeches, just one repeated message: "Hold on." In a hospital in Toronto, a nurse paused beside a window, watching alien shadows drift across the sky. In a refugee shelter in Jakarta, children asked if the stars would come back. No one could promise them they would, but humanity endured. The Vrak escalated. They tightened the blockade further, deploying automated interdiction platforms. They launched hunter-killer probes designed to adapt in real time. And still, the humans did not break. Instead, they changed. Human captains stopped following patterns entirely. Each ship became its own decision-making unit, acting on incomplete information and personal judgment. Some fled, some advanced recklessly. Some sacrificed themselves to create opportunities for others. From a Vrak perspective, it was madness. From a human one, it was freedom. "They are not coordinated," Yilthrek observed, "yet they act in harmony." Harzul did not respond. He was watching something else, a pattern not in movement, but in reaction. Humans responded faster than Vrak command could adapt. They exploited every hesitation, every delay caused by centralized approval. By the time orders reached the front, the situation had already changed. "This is not strategy," Harzul said darkly. "This is chaos." Yilthrek disagreed silently. Chaos implies lack of control. What he was seeing felt intentional. The breaking point came quietly. A Vrak carrier, one of the largest vessels in the Armada, entered what sensors reported as empty space. It never emerged.
The loss sent a shockwave through the fleet. Carriers were not expendable. They were symbols of permanence, of inevitability. Panic, true panic, rippled through Vrak's command nodes. "They are erasing us," one tactician whispered. "No," Yilthrek said, "they are teaching us." Harzul stared at the expanding field of wreckage, his certainty cracking. "They are not crude," he admitted, barely audible. "They are unfinished." And unfinished things, he realized too late, could still become anything. The Vrak's dominion had never retreated from a developing species. In 3 centuries of expansion, they had crushed rebellions before they formed. Their doctrine was studied across the galaxy because it worked, because it removed doubt from war. And now, doubt infected everything. On the bridge of the Dominion Spear, High Strategos Harzul watched certainty dissolve into noise. The tactical display no longer resembled a battlefield. Vectors contradicted themselves. Ship telemetry overlapped impossibly. Regions of space registered simultaneously empty and lethal. Reduce sensor input, Karzul ordered. Prioritize direct visual confirmation. The command horrified his tacticians. To reduce data intake was heresy, but data itself had become the enemy. As sensors dimmed, the void beyond the viewports came into sharper focus and revealed something deeply unsettling. Human ships were not fleeing, they were waiting. Admiral Lena Ortiz stood perfectly still as reports flooded her command deck. Losses, successes, near misses. None of it mattered in isolation. "What's our spread?" she asked. Commander Patel checked his console. "Exactly where we want them. They're compressing." Ortiz nodded slowly. "They can't help themselves," she said. "Their doctrine demands order." Human strategy, by contrast, thrived on imbalance. For weeks, human ships had behaved erratically, never repeating a maneuver, never committing to a pattern long enough to be understood. Every engagement had been a question mark. Now, for the first time, humanity would offer the Vracs an answer. A false one. "Phase 3, Ortiz said softly. Across the system, human vessels altered course, not randomly, deliberately. To the Vracs, it looked like desperation, ships converging too tightly, bleeding unpredictability in favor of mass. "Finally," Karzul murmured, "they seek structure." He ordered the armada forward. The Vracs' fleet advanced as one and walked directly into the trap. Human ships detonated their devices simultaneously, not explosives, variables. Gravitational stabilizers overloaded, bending local space just enough to break predictability. Civilian space-time dampeners, never designed for combat, created overlapping distortions that compounded chaotically. The battlefield fractured. Distance lost meaning, momentum became unreliable, targeting solutions degraded into probability clouds. Vracs' ships collided, not violently at first, but fatally. Minor course corrections sent massive vessels drifting into one another. Shield harmonics interfered, energy feedback cascaded. "Re-establish formation," Karzul roared, but formation required shared reality. Human ships surged through the confusion, striking where hesitation appeared. They did not coordinate attacks, they reacted instinctively, exploiting fleeting opportunities. One human frigate sacrificed itself, detonating near a Vracs carrier's gravity well. The resulting distortion pulled 3 Vracs cruisers into collision. Another human ship powered down completely, drifting unnoticed, until it released a burst of false telemetry that sent Vracs missiles chasing ghosts. "This is not war," one Vracs tactician whispered. "This is madness." Yothrek watched the unfolding chaos with dawning horror. "No," he said quietly, "this is learning." The Vracs attempted adaptation. They decentralized command nodes, relaxed formation constraints, authorized local decision-making. It was too late. Human captains had been trained their entire careers to act without permission, to fail, recover, and try again, to improvise under pressure. Vracs officers hesitated. They had been taught that hesitation was inefficiency, but never that certainty itself could be fatal. One by one, Vracs' ships fell, not to superior firepower, but to compounded mistakes. 1,000 ships vanished over the course of hours. Some exploded, some were torn apart by warped space, some drifted helplessly, systems scrambled beyond recovery. By the time Karzul issued the retreat order, the armada no longer existed as a cohesive force. Retreat, too, required coordination, and coordination was gone. On Earth, people watched the sky change again. Alien silhouettes thinned, stars returned, emergency broadcasts shifted tone, not celebratory, but stunned. "We are still here," one anchor said, voice trembling. In homes and shelters across the planet, people embraced without understanding why. Survival did not feel triumphant. It felt unreal. Karzul stood alone on the bridge of the crippled Dominion spear. Around him, officers worked in silence, tending to damage that should never have occurred. 1,000 ships gone. They didn't overpower us, Karzul said slowly. Yilthrek nodded. They made our certainty obsolete. The realization cut deeper than defeat. The Vraks had believed strategy was something perfected over time. Humans had treated strategy as something alive, mutable, responsive, never finished. They do not seek control, Yothrek continued. They seek survival. Karzul replayed intercepted human communications, fragmented, emotional, contradictory, and yet effective. For the first time in his long life, he felt something unfamiliar: respect. The retreat echoed across the galaxy. Observers from distant systems watched in disbelief as the once flawless Vrax armada dissolved. Military academies suspended lectures mid-session. Strategic treatises were quietly archived. A new question spread faster than fear. If humanity could do this, what else had the galaxy misunderstood? Admiral Ortiz watched the last Vrax ships vanish from Sol. She did not cheer. She closed her eyes. "We survived," Patel said softly. Ortiz exhaled. "That's all we ever aimed for." She knew what came next: diplomacy, suspicion, fear disguised as respect. Humanity had not announced itself as conqueror, but it had announced itself as something far more dangerous.
Unpredictable. The galaxy did not react all at once. At first, there was disbelief. Long-range observers replayed sensor logs repeatedly, convinced they were misreading corrupted data. Independent systems cross-checked results. Neutral trade guilds delayed announcements, waiting for confirmation that never contradicted the truth. The Vrax Dominion had failed. Not against an ancient rival, not against a hidden superpower, but against a young species that had never claimed superiority, only survival. When the Galactic Council reconvened, the chamber felt different. The architecture had not changed. The storms of viral prime still churned endlessly beneath the transparent floor. The ancient symbols of extinct civilizations still lined the walls, but the mood was stripped bare. No delegate laughed. No one floated comfortably in their gravitic fields. Even species that did not experience fear felt something analogous, an instability in long-held assumptions. High Strategos Karzul stood before them again. His carapace was scarred now. One mandible had been replaced with a functional prosthetic, a visible mark of disgrace in Vrax culture. He did not hide it. 1,000 ships, murmured a delegate from the Sarathi clans. Lost to a species with no unified command doctrine, whispered another. Karzul spoke without ceremony. "We believed intelligence was measured by control," he said. "We believed discipline required obedience. We believed strategy could be perfected." He paused, allowing the weight of failure to settle. "We were wrong." The word echoed through the chamber. "Humans did not defeat us by superior force," Karzul said. "They defeated us by refusing to remain predictable." A crystalline delegate refracted light sharply. "They violated every strategic principle." "Yes," Karzul replied, "and that is why they survived." For the first time in recorded council history, a dominant empire spoke not to justify its actions, but to warn others. "Do not mistake humanity's restraint for weakness," he said. "They are not peaceful because they are harmless. They are peaceful because they understand the cost of survival."
The council did not vote that day. It listened. On Earth, life resumed unevenly. Orbital stations were repaired slowly. Trade lanes reopened with caution. People returned to work even as alien wreckage still drifted beyond the moon. Humanity did not celebrate. There were no planetary parades, no monuments raised to conquest. Instead, there were names. Names read aloud in quiet rooms. Names engraved into walls. Names remembered. In a small apartment in Madrid, a widower placed a photograph beside a window overlooking the city lights. In Lagos, engineers worked double shifts to restore power to neighborhoods that had gone dark during the blockade. In Vancouver, children returned to school, drawing pictures of stars coming back. Humanity did what it always did after disaster. It rebuilt. Admiral Lena Ortiz stood before a panel of civilian leaders weeks later. "You could have pursued them. You could have demanded concessions," one representative said. "Yes," Ortiz nodded. "But why didn't you?" Ortiz chose her words carefully. "Because we didn't win, we survived." Silence followed. "We showed the galaxy we're not easy to erase," Ortiz continued. "That's enough." Some leaders wanted more. Others understood immediately. Humanity had drawn a line, not of dominance, but of consequence. Across the galaxy, perspectives shifted. Military academies rewrote doctrine quietly. The concept of absolute control was replaced with new, uncomfortable terms: decentralized resilience, adaptive uncertainty, human-style improvisation. Some empires fortified their borders, fearing what humanity might become. Others reached out cautiously. Trade envoys arrived at Earth bearing gifts that were less tribute and more apology. Diplomatic vessels requested permission before entering Sol. Permission. It was a word the galaxy had rarely associated with young species. Yilthrek watched Earth from afar, assigned as liaison rather than tactician. He observed human cities, chaotic, contradictory, vibrant. He studied their media, their arguments, their art. They argued endlessly, and yet, when tested, they aligned just enough. "They do not eliminate weakness, they incorporate it," Yilthrek recorded in a private log. Humans fail openly. They disagreed loudly. They corrected quickly. It was terrifying. Humanity's greatest weapon had never been technology. It was not their ships, not their physics-defying devices, not even their courage. It was their relationship with failure. Humans failed constantly and learned from it without shame. Where other species optimized until they became fragile, humans adapted until they became unpredictable. Where empires sought permanence, humans accepted impermanence and planned anyway. They did not ask, "How do we win forever?" They asked, "How do we survive this?" And then the next thing, and the next. Months after the blockade ended, a single human message was transmitted across open galactic channels. It was not a threat, not a declaration of power, not a demand. It was simple. "We do not seek dominion. We do not seek tribute. We seek the chance to learn, to grow, and to exist." The message ended with one final line: "If you leave us space to do so, we will." Some heard humility. Others heard warning. Both were correct. The galaxy had measured humanity by its youth, by its lack of unity, by its imperfect machines and emotional leaders. It laughed. But intelligence was never found in perfection. It was found in adaptation, in resilience, in the willingness to change under pressure. Humanity had not conquered the stars. It had done something far more unsettling. It had proven it could not be easily controlled. And for the first time in galactic history, the great empires understood not how humans fought, not how humans thought, but why humans endured. And for the first time, the galaxy truly understood what it meant to be human. If this story moved you, if it made you feel pride, awe, or quiet fear, subscribe for more human stories from the stars.